Would you ever make a deal with the devil? I know the right answer is no, but I wouldn't blame you if you said yes. It would be tempting, all that power or knowledge or wealth at your fingertips, and all you have to do is sign your name. Sure, there's a steep price to pay. You know there is. This is the devil. He doesn't have your best interest at heart. But it is still a contract, and it still goes both ways. There's always an escape clause, if you read the fine print. Because of these qualities, this kind of magically binding contract is a popular choice for villains working to ensnare our plucky hero. Until, of course, the hero inevitably turns the tables and gives the villain a taste of their own medicine. Disney movies are particularly rife with this dynamic. You see it show up in The Little Mermaid, Hercules, and The Princess and the Frog, just off the top of my head. But we already made a video about why villains love contracts. This video is about something else. This time I want to talk not about the broker behind the magical contract, but about the magic of the contract itself. Think about it. A magic system consists of rules that the magic, ostensibly, has to follow. A magic contract would just be a tighter, more concise version of that. But instead of ancient runes and forgotten tongues, this magic is written in a different language, one just as daunting to learn and perhaps even more dangerous. Legalese. All you have to do is learn how to read it. Are you enjoying the video so far? I hope so. These magic system videos are some of our favorites to make. We've actually been doing it for quite a while. In fact, there are some really unique ones that we've made that aren't here on YouTube. Like this one about artificial life as a magic system. Golems, gingerbread men, automatons, living statues, artificial intelligence. Just this interesting idea that crafting can somehow beget life. Or that life itself can be used as a crafting material. It was a really fun, really unique video for us. Definitely a highlight in this series. If you want to watch it and a bunch of other stuff that we haven't uploaded here on YouTube, you can find all of it ad-free over on our streaming platform, Nebula. There is so much stuff there that will just never be here on YouTube. We even have a whole original series over there called Worldsmiths. Visit go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry to sign up for just $2.50 a month. In Celtic mythology, there's this interesting thing that shows up in a lot of stories called a gesh. If you play D&D, you might already recognize this. It's a sort of curse, or sometimes blessing, that only activates if certain conditions are met. Cuchulainn, the demigod hero of the Irish mythological Ulster cycle, is a great example of this. He has not one, but two geshin placed upon him. One to never eat the meat of a dog, and another to never refuse food offered by a woman. Should he do either, his spirit will weaken to the point where he is, unthinkably, actually vulnerable on the battlefield. And it's this one stipulation on his powers that finally allows his enemies to best him. When they send a woman to offer him a meal of dog meat, he's placed in the impossible position of breaking one gesh or the other. He must never eat meat from a dog, but he is also unable to refuse food offered by a woman. And so, with no other option, he accepts and breaks one of his two geshin, and he is so weakened by this action that his enemies, at last, are able to slay him. This feels like a sort of magical contract, doesn't it? There's a condition to fulfill, an if-then statement. If you don't eat the meat of a dog, then you will remain strong and fearsome. But it doesn't quite meet the mark. You see, contracts have to be agreed upon by both parties, even if under duress. Even if they don't want to sign, the important part is that they did. And as we saw with Cuchulainn, geshin don't really work that way. It's possible to place a gesh on an unwilling victim, which makes it much more like a curse than a contract. Similarly, promises or vows are also closely related to contracts, but don't quite qualify either. We actually made a video about that too, promises as a magic system, because it really is a different thing. A promise or a vow or an oath is usually an expression of good faith rather than an exchange between two parties. They usually operate on the spirit or intention of the agreement, whereas contracts tend to focus on the letter. You can't usually weasel your way out of a promise you made by quibbling about the wording. So, contracts must be, at least superficially, agreed upon by both parties, and when there's magic involved, that gets interesting pretty fast. They could be two magic users, and of course they often are. But contracts between two magicians on equal footing, such as an unbreakable vow, are rarely the basis for an entire magic system. After all, that magic had to come from somewhere, right? Usually, contracts between two magic users exist within the context of a broader, non-contract-based magic system. It's much more common for contract-based magic systems to exist between a magic user and a non-magic user. Like the deal with the devil we spoke about earlier, the oldest and possibly most prevalent form of magical contracts are those struck between a mortal and a supernatural being of some kind. Fairies, demons, genies, witches, you know the type. How enticing to have one of these magical agents offer you a way to tap into forces that have never before been accessible to you, even if it comes at a price. And make no mistake, it usually does. But not always. In other interpretations of this dynamic, the magic user might offer their favor with no expectations at all, but they also operate on extremely precise wording, leading to a monkey's paw scenario, while a wish is subverted while technically still being fulfilled. Genies and jinn are especially notorious for this, but it's hardly limited to them, and certainly not always malicious. One of my favorite ever examples of a magical agent taking advantage of a hapless mortal comes from the anime Quella Magi Madoka Magica, a name I probably just butchered. In the show, an adorable little cat-like creature called Kyubey goes around offering ordinary young girls a single wish, no strings attached. All they have to offer in exchange is a lifetime of grueling service as monster-fighting magical girls. Surprisingly, unlike many such magical agents, Kyubey doesn't attempt to undermine the girls' wishes by focusing on their wording. He lets them have what they want. He just doesn't tell them the full story about what they'll be giving up. And the results are truly horrifying. Watch the anime if you want to know what I mean. I don't have the heart to say it here. Suffice to say, none of these little girls would have accepted the terms of the contract if they could really wrap their head around what it was they were agreeing to. And this is one of the hallmarks of magical contracts of this kind. Whenever we see a fairy or a genie or a creepy magical cat creature enter a contract with an ordinary person, we wonder immediately how it's going to go wrong. Most of the time, these stories devolve into a battle of wits between the two signatories, each looking for a loophole to get the best of the other party, without technically violating the terms they agreed to. In the web serial Pact by J.C. Wildbow McCrae, humans who have no innate powers wield magic by binding and making deals with supernatural beings like ghosts, goblins, and demons called others. That's others with a capital O. And when human practitioners deal with others, they often write actual contracts complete with arbitration clauses designating a mediator if there's to be a dispute in the terms. The universe of Pact is based on a give and take, a karmic scale that balances itself out as a natural law, the way a sea must settle after a storm. One of the major drawbacks practitioners face is the fact that magic users, including others, cannot lie without being karmically punished by a loss of strength. The characters, therefore, must word their statements carefully, dancing around falsehoods, leaving wiggle room so that they don't accidentally back themselves into a corner where they have to break their word. At one point, a character accepts a deal from a fairy that seems too good to be true, a ring of immense power in exchange for whatever the fairy wants from her school backpack. He even lets her look through the backpack and remove items before picking his offering. Then, with a flourish, he removes her signature from an old test and makes his choice. Her name, and with it, her entire identity. Hey, he technically never lied, right? So, that's what it looks like when two people enter one of these mutually, magically binding agreements. But there's a whole other side to magical contracts that I think makes them really unique. Something far stranger than the battle of wits we just discussed. In real life, every contract has multiple parties. Even things like end-user license agreements have a person or company on the other side. But with magic, that doesn't always have to be the case. With magic, we sometimes see contracts that only have one signer, This usually comes in the form of some inanimate object that essentially functions as a magical contract machine. If someone fulfills the conditions the object considers to be agreement, the contract is sealed. It's a version of the Gesh's if-then statement that actually does function as a binding agreement, a Gesh you place on yourself by fulfilling the terms of this one-sided contract, whether you meant to or not. In the anime Death Note, a teenage boy stumbles upon the titular notebook, which kills any human whose name is written in its pages. It is the tool of a Shinigami, a Japanese death god. The rules by which it operates are written inside the cover, including a warning that any human who uses the Death Note can neither go to heaven nor hell. Thus, while it isn't a contract in the traditional form, anyone who writes a name in the Death Note is implicitly agreeing to its terms, the power to take others' lives at will, in return for eternal oblivion after their own death. And this isn't a deal made with the Shinigami who originally owned the Death Note either. In the story, they mostly just stand by as an amused witness to the whole thing. The truth is that they don't have to approve or even know which human has picked up their notebook. No, the deal is struck with the Death Note itself. There's a similar contract in the world of Harry Potter, where the Goblet of Fire is enchanted to form a binding magical contract with any student who burns a slip of paper with their name on it in the cup's fire. Those students are from that point on magically bound to participate in the dangerous and taxing Triwizard Tournament, an ancient competition between the three largest European schools of magic. But when somebody tricks the Goblet of Fire into accepting Harry's name under the false pretense of a fake fourth school, he is still bound by his contract. Harry himself didn't enter. In fact, he doesn't even qualify to compete. But it doesn't seem to matter. The Goblet of Fire is a dumb but powerful magical contract machine, and to it, burning Harry's name is the equivalent of a binding signature. Interestingly, we're never told what exactly will happen if Harry doesn't compete, just that he doesn't have the option not to. In a lot of magical contracts, the penalty for breaking your end of the deal is, naturally, death. Other times, the consequences are spelled out within the contract itself. But a third, and in my opinion more interesting option, is when the signatories are simply just physically unable to break their end of the deal at all, no matter how hard they try. When the magic hijacks their body of free will, forcing them to act in accord with the terms they agreed to. Trying to avoid fulfilling the contract's terms might cause their body to move on its own like a puppet. A non-disclosure agreement might literally render one unable to speak. In the world of SCP, a collaborative project about anomalous items and phenomena that break the rules of physics and rationality, there's an item known as SCP-350, the Unbreakable Contract. When you sign it, you literally cannot default on the obligations you made through it. It infects you with compulsion to uphold your end of the deal, so powerful that, if unfulfilled, will keep you from being able to think about anything else, including eat and sleeping. But this can also be vaguer than all of that as well. Sometimes it's not a person or an object you're entering into an agreement with. Sometimes it's just magic itself. Just you, alone, signing your name on the cosmic dotted line of fate. In the 1994 Christmas movie The Santa Claus, the main character, Scott Calvin, accidentally enters a magical agreement to become Santa Claus by putting on the suit of the Santa he just accidentally murdered, long story, and sitting in his sleigh. These two actions activate the if-then acceptance conditions of a contract written on a business card in the pocket of the suit, which he didn't happen to see until after the fact. And now he's stuck, with no option to back out. Against his will, he begins to change per the contract's terms. He gains weight, he grows a bushy white beard, he literally becomes Santa Claus. All because a silly legal clause on a silly piece of paper that came from who knows where. With magic, a deal's a deal, regardless of who or what you make it with. And this is why contracts are so compelling as a magic system. The rules the magic operates by, mysterious and concealed in other systems, are laid bare in this one, open, visible, and freely perusable to anyone looking out for them. And, surprisingly, that doesn't make it boring. Quite the opposite. Knowing the rules allows us to appreciate the cleverness it takes our hero or our villain to navigate them, with no need for us to understand complicated fantasy jargon, or conversely, to blindly accept an author's hand-waving, "Trust me, this is a really complicated spell and this character just found a really clever way to do it." Wording a contract in just the right way, or finding a loophole so that it doesn't come back to bite you, requires a type of cunning that anyone can enjoy and appreciate, as long as they're somewhat fluent in legalese. So, go ahead and make that deal with the devil, or genie, or troll under the bridge. However much there is to lose, remember, contracts go both ways, so there's also a whole lot to gain. Just be sure to read the fine print, okay? These magic system videos are some of our favorites to make. We've actually been doing it for quite a while. In fact, there's some really unique ones from back in the day that we've actually never uploaded here on YouTube. One of my favorites has to be this one about artificial life as a magic system. Golems, gingerbread men, automatons, living statues, artificial intelligence, just this idea that crafting can somehow beget life, or that life can even be used as a crafting material. It was a really fun, really unique video for us, a really fond memory for me in making these magic system videos. If you want to watch that and almost everything else we've made that we haven't uploaded here on YouTube, you can see it all ad-free over on our streaming platform, Nebula. Actually, there are so many things over there that will never be here on YouTube. Full videos like this one about a fantasy world that basically has its own gigantic geographic genitalia, or this one about the morphology of angels and why artists are always giving them wings even though they didn't really have them in the source material. You can find all of our videos there ad-free a week earlier than they upload here on YouTube, plus all of these exclusive videos that we only upload to Nebula. We even have an entire original series over there that we are just so proud of. Absolutely one of the coolest things we've ever made. And we aren't the only ones who have been posting there. The same is true for so many other amazing creators, names you've probably heard before, like our friend Frankie from the channel A Bit Frank, or Tim from the channel Hello Future Me. YouTube is kind of a crazy place to make content. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy to have this platform, but you have to be so careful about your topic choices, your packaging, what you include in your videos. You just start to feel like you're walking on eggshells. Nebula doesn't have any of those concerns. It's an entirely different environment, devoid of all the weird YouTube cynicism. The entire platform was made by creators for creators. Every time you watch a video there, a creator you love is getting paid, and far more than they would ever get paid on YouTube. And on top of that, Nebula even helps its creators to fund incredible original content, like our series, Worldsmiths. And here's the really fun part. You can get Nebula for cheaper than almost any other streaming platform on the internet. Like $2.50 per month. That cheap. We want you to have access to our Nebula content, so we've managed to get Foundry fans who sign up using our link a whole 40% off the usual rate. All you have to do is click the link in the description or visit go.nebula.tv/TaleFoundry and sign up for 1 year. That's it. And with our discount, that first year is only going to be $30, which again comes out to just $2.50 per month. Frankly, I'm not quite sure how they can afford to do this for us, but I'm definitely not complaining. Seriously, take advantage of this offer while it's still going. I don't think any better one exists in the world of streaming, and it's a huge help to us. Among the best things you can do to support the channel. Anyway, that's all for this one. Thanks for watching, and keep making stuff up. I'll see you next week. Bye!